All right, we're off.
Oh, baby.
We haven't really sat down in a little while because we stockpiled a few.
We had a lot. That was all that NASCAR stuff, Rooster, Billy Jack. That was all piled up in one beautiful swing.
So I feel like as we've been talking about some things for our upcoming podcast, that this might be a little bit of a salad buffet type situation, a little kind of all over the place.
There you go.
You got some things to talk about. I
Yeah.
got some things to talk about.
Yeah.
We've got Roost on here.
I have nothing to talk about.
Look, the old bandit Rooster got a new scarf for Christmas. Check that out.
Ah.
Doesn't that look good?
Looks really good. Well, consider yourself color commentary then. If you have nothing to talk about, just
How about just visual commentary?
Rooster's actually dealing with a little bit of fame himself right now. We had a funeral we went to this morning. Went up and sang for an older gentleman from church that passed away, and it was in a community where I'm just not super tied into the community. Know a few of the people up there, but a little over an hour away from here. And we're walking back to the car after the graveside, and we hear someone say, "Rooster, Rooster," and that's when you know. Because we refer to him, on YouTube and on the podcast, and we do around the ranch here. But when some strangers yelling "Rooster," you know that it's someone that somewhere at some point has come across the roost. So Roost is like, "What?" Turns out he's got a fan from up there. Been watching him on the old YouTube.
Oh man, nice.
So
He was not much of a fan of me. He was a fan of you and Luke.
Nah, he was a fan of Rooster. So
Before we do that, we want to give thanks to someone today.
oh yeah,
Hot Shot Secret. We've mentioned Hot Shot Secret once or twice on the podcast.
Yeah.
I know you've talked about them on your YouTube channel.
right.
We've talked about gel diesel a number of times, and the secret that you and I have to prevent gel diesel is Hot Shot Secret product.
Yeah.
We have talked about it. We use it. You've used it for
Been like
years?
4 years probably now. Yeah.
and Hot Shot Secret was kind enough to send us some product.
Yeah.
So we're going to reciprocate and tell all of you this is the product to use.
It is. It's what I use. It's my secret to success. Not only does it keep my rig running, keeps my beard growing beautiful and red.
Seriously, is Jaxon has picked up a little bit of momentum with his YouTube channel, and we're gaining some traction with the podcast. There are companies and people that reach out wanting to sponsor or have influencer affiliate programs partner with us.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want to waste listeners' time with stuff that we don't care about.
Yeah.
Or we don't use, or we don't believe will work. Hot Shot Secret again. Before you even filmed a YouTube video, you were using this product.
Right. Yeah. Way back when. The reason we want to bring this to you is because it's legit and we use it. I have no intention or no need to bring things to people that I don't find a use for myself. I've lately been getting flooded with offers to partner on online multiplayer games. I check my email and they're like, "Hey, Age of Wizards or what? I don't know." And they're like, "Would you promote this?" And I'm like, no, I'm so against that kind of thing. Like, there's no way. No, thank you. So, but you might be into that. That might be something you do and would want to push. But no, Hot Shot Secret, it's kind of fun because I heard about them wherever years ago. And their two main products that I love and I use is their everyday treatment, which I feel I've found in my experience gives me a little better fuel mileage in my semi and keeps my injectors running good. So I use that. They have this injector cleaner that's, insane. And we'll probably talk about it more and tell you some more specific stories sometime about it. But it's one of those rare outfits where you use the stuff and it's not like mumbo magic. And this is what's frustrating about their products is that's where they are in the stores. When you go and you go into, I think they're in O'Reilly's Auto Parts or like Tractor Supply. You walk in there and it's like the one shot magic drop for all your problems. You have bad fuel mileage. You have a leaky transmission. You have a hole in your gas tank. All three of those things, put this in there and wow, it's going to fix it all at once. And then next to that is like Hot Shot Secret Injector Cleaner. And I'm like, no, you guys, those are not the same. Get them on their own.
Yeah. So right now in the winter, this is all you use when you're out there in 50 below weather driving.
Yep.
On the ranch, 50 below weather, feeding cattle, running tractors. Ford, Rooster. My little operation, it's what I use. And I have gelled with everything else I've tried. I've never gelled with Hot Shot Secret. So we think this is the stuff.
Yep.
And is, being winter, that's the product of choice for us now. Going into summers, there's some other products that we use, and we'll probably talk about that. Is this what you use to use treat your big diesel tank as well?
That is what I do. I made the fatal mistake. That's all farm diesel. So all the tractors and skid steers use that. For my pickup, I stay totally legal and buy fuel in town. I gelled up last week with my pickup. I couldn't believe it.
I didn't put that together till now. His pickup, of course, because Rooster is honest and good and doesn't run red dyed diesel in his pickup. So the big bulk tank is treated with Hot Shot's winter treatment.
So we need to explain what this is. A lot of people probably don't know what red dye diesel is.
Yeah, that's true. So red dye diesel is untaxed diesel. So all the fuel that I don't know if everybody knows this or not, but all the fuel you buy every day and whenever that you put in your car, your pickup, your semi, whatever, it has a highway tax already added to it. So when you buy a gallon of gas, you're paying so many cents per gallon in tax. It's built into the cost. But they came up with this forever ago. They've been doing this forever. This little loophole for off-road vehicles like tractors, skid steers, whatnot, construction equipment, things that aren't operated on a highway that don't need to be taxed because they're never going to be on a highway. So they take the fuel tax off, and that, like with red dye diesel, it's not quite $1 a gallon cheaper, but it's like 70-ish,
50, 60 cents.
It kind of varies from state to state, but yeah, it's just untaxed.
So what Rooster does at the ranch here is they have a big freestanding tank, and they bring out and fill that with red dye diesel.
Yeah.
And so throughout the year, all of the farm machinery is fueled here on the place with the red dye diesel. One of the problems you can run into with red dye diesel, which I've experienced, is in the winter, the diesel itself at the gas stations is treated.
Because it's cycling through. I mean, every couple of days there's a semi that refills the tanks.
So they're treating that diesel to make it more resistant to gelling, just as it is out of the gas
from
station.
The factory, from the refinery.
But the red dye diesel, they don't treat it for winter.
Some do here, they will, but not with
where I'm at. They don't, because they say they don't sell enough to make it worth it.
Really?
Because mine all gelled up.
See, I think our company here does.
Town Pump does.
They do. Okay.
But it's not enough. It's not like the road diesel. It's different.
Because I gelled up using that Town Pump diesel, which is supposedly good to 30 below.
What Roost is saying here is that he got the treated diesel. And we say treated, we're not saying supplemented with an anti-gel. We're talking about the treated diesel from
the refinery
pump into the vehicle.
Yep.
Roost got that and he gelled up, but his red dye diesel, which is treated much less intensely for winter, Hot Shot Secret was put into that tank and have not gelled up farm equipment on that.
Right. And that's the stuff we use. Every day the tractor's feeding cows. So it's just those life. You look at those and it's like, man, what more are you looking for?
So anyway, Hot Shot Secret, thank you for sending us some products.
Yeah.
It will not go on a shelf.
It will not go on a shelf.
It's going right into the vehicles.
Oh, for sure. Speaking of vehicles, we were on our way to, I was on my way to fly. I had to go I bought a used pickup in Nevada and had to go grab it last week. And on our way, well, the night before my flight took off, I get a text from Delta that says, your flight is canceled. And this is after I've already dealt with some problems with this flight from the past couple of weeks. Just like, I just want to go get this pickup and get it home. So anyway, they say it's canceled. And I'm like, I'm not giving up. So I reroute my flight from Billings to Great Falls because Great Falls did not have a weather cancellation. On my way to Great Falls, we were dealing with freezing rain because the winter here turned from, was whatever episode we were talking about, my horrible ground blizzard experiences. We went from 50 below wind chill to now it's like 50 degrees out there. Just amazing. So the problem now is we get like freezing rain every night because it doesn't snow anymore. It rains and then freezes every night. So we're having like this strange occurrence of that constant freezing rain. Anyway, on our way to Great Falls, early in the morning, freezing rain. So I'm doing the thing, being careful. No road spray. I'm using all the signs, all the clues, everything I've learned all my years. And the ship is, we're doing good. Get closer to Great Falls. And this always happens so fast. I look in my mirror. I just notice a presence in my mirror as I'm driving straight. And I look in my mirror and a car is coming out to pass me. But instead of passing me, they continued to just do this and turn completely sideways. So now we're like perpendicular like this going down the road.
You made a T.
Yeah. I'm going like this and they're sliding sideways down the road. Of course, theirs start to slow down. So now I start putting some distance between. We had all the kids and Haley and everybody. I was like, guys, look behind us. And I'm going, oh no. This car's been following me from Lewistown for 80 miles. And I was driving about 55. And even that was just a little, but I was trying to make this plane. And it straightens back out and then overcorrects and this and that. And then finally it catches traction. But when it does, they are positioned perfectly to shoot off out into the borrow pit, down through the borrow pit, up through the barbed wire fence. They did not roll. I was just waiting for the car to roll over, at which point, of course, we would have had to stop and would have been bad. But no rollover, good cell service. So we kind of moved on down the road. I tell one of my truckers this story. He's an older gentleman that trucks for me, the Silver Fox, we call him. And he's like, he calls me yesterday. He's like, hey, didn't you tell me a story about a car going, like, trying to pass you and getting all crazy? I was like, yeah, over by Geyser. He's like, I get home yesterday and my neighbor's like, hey, come out and look at my car. And he goes out and here's this car that Hank's like, it's all scratched up and bumpers are falling off and the running boards are hanging loose. And he's like, they told me the story about that they were following this car to Great Falls and they lost control and they went off in the ditch. It was Hank's neighbor. And so I was like, oh no. I'm like, did they say anything about like me? Did they feel like I was somehow like, we followed this guy driving 2 miles an hour all the way across and then finally decided to pass him? And the story goes like, you're going to love it. He goes, I never should have allowed this, but I let my wife drive that morning. And he goes, my wife's driving and I was on my phone, which is funny because they're, retired. They're on their way to their grandkids hockey game or something. And he goes, I'm on my phone and I feel the car start to accelerate and move. And I look up just in time to see that my wife has decided to pass the car that we've been following safely for 80 miles. And he goes, just as I'm going out to say, no, he goes, the whole car turns sideways like this. And we start going all over. And he goes, we shot out through the fence and all that. But just that, going off the road, down through the ditch and through a barbed wire fence, $14,000 of damage to their little all-wheel drive.
Oh, man.
Anyway, just funny because we've been talking about this. It seems like every podcast, it's like winter this or winter that. But
so that same storm system that you're talking about that did that freezing rain, that 2 days after that, I ran into some guys from Fort Benton. And so Fort Benton, Montana is down along the Missouri River. And so the highway to get to Fort Benton is up above the town. And to get into the town, you have to go off of the highway and you drop down kind of into the river bottom.
And this is where Lewis and Clark traveled through here, just to give you a little geographic,
And so to get into Fort Benton, you drop into it, or to get out of Fort Benton, you have to climb up out of it to get up to the highway. And those guys said that everyone woke up and no one could leave Fort Benton. No one could get up the hills because the ice was so bad. I imagine if someone chained up, they may make it, but
They're just stuck.
he said the whole town was stuck till about 2 p.m. until that ice burned off where they could get up the hills. He said a lot of cars wrecked trying to get out of there.
Oh,
No one could get out of Fort Benton.
I believe it.
You know, one little trick that could take care of that, and I saw this happen in that Billings, that hill down from their airport. It was so slick that snowplows were backing up the hill and spreading sand.
Oh, from
in
the bottom?
reverse. They were coming up in reverse and spreading sand. So when their wheels get the sand, they were just giving themselves traction all the way to the top.
Interesting.
That's some old school wisdom right there.
That's the only time I've ever seen a snowplow
Go
spreading sand in reverse.
backwards. Huh, that's pretty smart though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just remembered that I was supposed to tell a story. I think I'm 2 episodes late on sharing this winter tip. Sorry. About getting stuck, getting drifted into the truck stop. Did you ever come across this video?
Yes. Hold it. Before you get to that, I got to tell you one more
Okay.
crazy car
Yeah.
thing that happened to me driving over here today.
Today?
Yeah. So just west of Eddie's Corner, going towards Great Falls, you'll climb up that hill and it goes into a double passing lane. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, right before the feedlot.
So I was behind 2 semis and then me, and I'm pulling this trailer. And I come down the hill, and 300 or 400 yards before the double passing lane, Fergus County High School, Lewistown's bus goes to pass someone. All right, so I'm just going to restart over this. So that hill just east of Eddie's Corner where it goes into a double lane passing, we've just come down off this hill. I'm following 2 semis, and I can see right when they dip down a little below me, I can see just up ahead a big bus pulling out to pass someone just right before his side goes into double passing.
He just needs to wait a little further and he'd be fine.
30 seconds.
Okay.
30 seconds. Pulls out not even remotely close enough space to pass before he's head on with the semi. So the first semi slams on his brakes. The second semi swerves over into the borrow pit and goes around the semi that slammed on his brakes. And now all of a sudden I'm coming up on the semi that slammed on his brakes. And so I have to jump over down into the borrow pit as well for this school bus.
Was it like an activity bus?
Yeah, like the ones you'd see taking this and just emblazed around the side, Fergus County Golden Eagles. So I immediately called the school.
You did?
Yeah.
Good.
I said, I need to talk to whoever's in charge of your bus drivers because you just about killed your whole bus full of kids. I couldn't believe it. Like I couldn't believe that it attempted that pass with not even close, and it almost wrecked 2 semis and me with them.
So they put you in touch with the bus guys?
Left a message. Yeah, they went to a voicemail, but literally wait 30 seconds and there's a double passing lane that they could have used.
It's amazing the lack of decision, the lack of, I don't know what the word is, but just the lack of brain power that goes into so many decisions that you see day to day on the road. That happens every day on the road. Every single day, there's one instance like that.
Anyway, we'll go back to your tip you were given.
Okay, so you saw the follow up with them guys too. Make sure call them back. Make sure you get to razz somebody about that. I mean, Fergus County's had some bad bus wrecks over the years, so that is important. So you saw the video of the trucker in the parking lot. A lot of you listening have probably seen this. Half of you listening have sent it to me in a direct message. Thank you for the opportunity, by the way, for myself to be able to observe that video 16,000 times. But anyway, it's this trucker, and I'll just kind of set this up for you. The camera is like this. He pans to the right to his passenger seat, and over here, it's his window just completely entombed in snow. And you're like, whoa. And then half of his front windshield's covered in snow. And then he walks out of his truck, walks out in front and turns the camera around. And his truck is basically buried in a snowdrift. The truck next to him is like entirely buried in a snowdrift. And then it just progressively steps down to where the very first truck doesn't really have any snow on it. And it's just pretty like awesome. Like, whoa, that's some crazy nature's power there, you know, on display. And, you know, beyond that, of course, now you need to go, what's the lesson to learn here? Like, there's a lesson to this. So what is it? And I'll tell you, this is actually an old tip that Billy Jack laid down on me once. And because I got stuck in a snowstorm, and I don't remember how it came up, but I'm always like, I don't like to idle my truck. So when I was parked there, I was there for almost 2 days in West Yellowstone, Montana. And I didn't want to idle my truck, so I'd shut it off to save fuel. Then like 6 hours later, I'd get pretty cold inside. So I'd reach my hand out of it. It was in an old Peterbilt cab over, and I'd fire it up, let it warm up. But then when I let it warm up, this is the trick. You get in the driver's seat and you drive forward and make tracks and pack the snow down. I mean, drive out to wherever you need to be, wherever your route out is when the road's open. Make a path as far as you can, and then back into your spot. And in my case, I was probably 50 yards off the highway in a pullout. And so I would make tracks directly to the highway and then back into my little spot like a spider. And then I'd come out, and every few hours I'd do that because I got nothing else to do. I'm literally sitting on the side of the road with nothing to do. And this was even, I think, in kind of the early cell phone days where you were worried about data, and you're like, well, I can't even get on the internet. I'll use all my data and stuff. So you're just sitting there in the cold in the mountains. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're in a truck stop or on the side of the road and the wind's raging and the snow's coming down, do not sit there and allow yourself to just become mummified in a snowdrift. Like, you have nothing to do. So the one productive thing that you can do is move your truck. So, I mean, that was a cool video, and you're like, oh man, that's crazy. But that's what happens if you just let it happen. Like, you don't have to be a total victim. And they got so much snow, maybe the parking lot would have drifted. But it was quite obvious nobody really did anything. Mm. And I've seen that before where guys get stuck and you're like, you got to get after it a little bit. You got nothing going on.
I don't know that this is as big of an issue in a semi, but with vehicles, sometimes people get buried, waiting for emergency services.
Oh yeah. You mentioned that.
Carbon monoxide poisoning. They'll leave their vehicle running
with the windows all up,
and then they get drifted over, and they'll die from carbon monoxide poisoning.
That's crazy.
But you have to get a pretty good drift to.
Yeah. But, in semis, it's not uncommon to get carbon monoxide poisoning. Mm. Usually they'll catch it in time and then get sick in the sleeper. Like, man, I'm just feeling sick. Because all your exhaust on a semi runs underneath the sleeper. So if you get any kind of, breakage or whatever in your exhaust pipe, which is very common, that smoke's going to just kind of waft up through the floor of your semi. Do you have something you're going to say, Bruce?
I just... If you drive Freightliner cab overs, you don't have that problem because there's so many leaks, so much air come through the doors and the windows. So there's no way it could ever happen.
How did they create a truck so cold as a Freightliner cab over? It's like,
made for Florida driving.
Oh, you got to put on your muck boots. You got to put on your blankets, your coveralls, your coat, gloves, hat. You're just totally bundled sitting there. But I did actually last week put a carbon monoxide detector in the bottom of my sleeper because, driving a truck up and down the road, it's like, it's a pretty easy fix.
Ponderay Hooterite Colony just had a death from carbon monoxide poisoning.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yep. Child, I think, was airlifted to Salt Lake, hyperbaric chamber, and a death.
Really?
Carbon monoxide poisoning.
Didn't make it.
So those carbon monoxide detectors... it's serious business.
Dang.
So it's yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
I had since we've talked last, I had another first out on the roads. I've hit deer before, and I posted this on Instagram. Some people might have seen this.
Did you see this picture, Rooster?
No.
So I was taking my kid up to the ski hill. It was over New Year's. They have like a 3-day ski camp. So the first day you got to get up there and get registered. We like to get early because you get a bunch of kids and you're standing in line waiting for all the registered. Like to get up to the head of that. So we're going along, just that kind of weird light, right not dark, right not light. And a little buck jumped out and tried to beat me across the road, and I just saw him enough to just see, man, almost his ears laid back and his head stretched, pushing, and hit the front of the truck. I've got a nice grill guard on there for this reason.
That you just put on like days before.
Yeah, fairly recently. Which I had hardly driven the truck at night because of that. Anyway, it hit, smacked him pretty good. He flipped around and hit my door, did some damage to the door. But I pulled over to make sure he was dead. And as soon as and to assess damage, as soon as I got out of the truck, I just heard this sound.
Right away.
Which my first thought was something underneath the truck got ripped out. And so I'm starting to look and see where I can see fluid just going anywhere. And then as I'm looking, I realized that his antler is punched into my tire. So I'd hit this deer, and somehow his antler had broken off in the impact, and either punched in the tire or it was on the ground so quickly I ran over it. I don't know what happened, but it punched a pretty good hole in it, so my tire was flat within seconds.
I mean, an antler's like, even a small little antler is going to be like your pinky size at the tip of it. I mean, so that's a pretty good puncture.
Have you heard of that? So the tire shops had said, tractors a lot of times will come over, a deer has shed out in the pasture and you're out driving around and tractor will run over. So they'll get tractor tires, but I've never experienced a horn punching through my tire before.
And there's probably been no one on the face of the earth that has hit more deer than me. And I've never seen that happen.
Right.
What a goofy.
I think it was his last dying way to just be like, you know what? You ended me a little early. This is what I'm doing to you.
Yeah. So that was, so then we get up there to the ski hill, and kind of get settled in. And then is got my kid off into his class in skiing. I went up to use the restroom and it was full. And so I leaned against the wall just waiting for something to open up. And a few other guys walked in as kind of a group, and they came around the corner and saw it was full, and they looked at me and said, "Are you in line?" And I said, "No, I'm just observing." I said, when I get cold, I like to come in and just observe in here while I warm up.
What?
Everyone at the urinals' heads almost in unison flipped around backwards to see who this weirdo was. And then kind of all at once, everyone realized that, of course, I'm waiting.
I've never, because I mean, how many times do you go into like a McDonald's or something, whatever, and there's, obviously that's when you're like, hey, have you ordered? Because everyone's kind of just waiting around. So there I can see, yeah, okay. But in a bathroom, you're like, you guys, what in the world else would I be doing here, do you think?
Yeah. So yeah, that had happened. I also lately came across an article about private prisons.
Oh.
And I think when we talked about when I was working in the prison, doing dentistry in there through COVID, that the prison I worked in is a private prison.
You have mentioned, yep.
So for anyone who hasn't heard those episodes, or if I didn't adequately describe it, our country has lots and lots and lots of private prisons. And it's a big flashpoint for people who push prison reform. And one of the big reasons is if you monetize the incarceration of people, there's going to be lobbying and every incentive to lobby for stiffer sentences to keep people in jail longer because someone's making money off of it. I can understand that argument, and I don't know that I disagree with that argument. At the same time, anything that's privatized can do it cheaper than government. So if people are going to be incarcerated, it can be done cheaper in private prisons. I can understand that argument as well. But the fact is we have private prisons in the United States, and I worked in one.
Yep.
Montana does not have enough space at the Montana State Prison to house inmates, and so they contract with a private prison. And so this article I was reading was talking about how much worse off inmates are in private prisons, much higher incidences of assaults, of rule breaking, of just, it's more dangerous for inmates and guards.
Librarians being assaulted.
Yeah, go look. So what they were doing, and what this article was actually referencing back to an Attorney General report that President Biden used to sign an executive order for the U.S. Department of Justice to not renew contracts with private prisons. That doesn't affect states. States can contract, but the federal government now cannot contract with private prisons. And so this article was referencing kind of the reasons why. And it was not my experience in the private prison that I worked in at all. And I wanted to just tell you why I think private prisons may not be as bad as government-run prisons.
Yeah.
So private prisons go through perpetual audits, always under audit. They're being audited by the state in medical ways and in the treatment of just the way the jails run. They're under audit all the time, and they're very intense audits. And these audits, if you don't pass, you can lose your contract, which end up being, tens, hundreds of $1 million a year contracts. So these private prisons.
Well, and it's not like you can repurpose and do something else. It's not like, well, we're going to manufacture something different. Like, you screw up, it's a prison. Like, what else are you going to do with it?
So when I worked there, there was always this really high stress intensity amongst a large part of the administration because there's always audits going on. And they're checking minute little things. Uh-huh. But when you sign a contract, for instance, Montana contracts with this private prison. The company is called CoreCivic. And so the state outlines all of the requirements that CoreCivic has to meet to honor the contract. But the state does not hold themselves to the same standard. Okay.
That sounds about right.
So this is like that Attorney General report that Biden used to sign his executive order.
So to be clear, you firmly believe that private prisons are held to a way higher standard. They operate on a way higher, better plane.
Based off of my experience working in one.
Mm-hmm. Well, but
yes, absolutely.
That's what we have here.
And I'm going to give you some examples of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And it'll make sense. So this Attorney General report that Biden used to sign this executive order to not renew contracts with private prisons went through a bunch of statistics, how contraband was higher in private prisons, sexual assaults were higher, violent assaults were higher. Thus, private prisons are a much worse environment. So we're going to go away from prisons. I'm going to give an example of what that means from the way I looked at it. When we lived in California for a period of time, the area where my in-laws live is a well-off, nice area. And they had recently had, over the previous few months, a huge increase in home break-ins, vehicle break-ins. And it was becoming alarming to everyone in the area because nothing seemed to be safe anymore, which was traditionally a pretty safe, quiet area. And there was a police officer I was talking to about it, and he goes, well, here's the thing. The state reclassified what a felony is. So it used to be like, I don't remember the exact numbers, like $300 damage or theft was a felony. Mm-hmm. But they changed it to like $1,200 now was. So now you can steal and do a lot more, and it's not a felony. So the crime rates that they track actually decreased because they made...
Not because crime
actually increased. Mm-hmm. Crime increased.
Because they slacked.
But the state, the lawmakers who passed this were applauding them, saying, look, we passed this and look at what a big decrease in crime we've had. So the reporting standard was lessened, so they had less crime, even though more crime was taking place.
But it looked like less.
In this private prison, the standard that is held to, that is enforced by auditing at the risk of losing a contract, is much, much higher than what Montana State Prison itself holds itself to. A good example of this is George Bush signed an act in a place called the Prison Elimination Act, Prison Rape Elimination Act, and it's PREA, and everyone calls it PREA. he signed it into effect, and then it was put on states to implement it. And they were given a time frame to implement it. So private prisons also have to implement it. In the case of Montana, the CoreCivic private prison says here's the act. It needs to be implemented, and then it has to pass an audit that you've met all the requirements and you are implementing it. So they went to work, created all the protocols, all the rules, everything around this PREA Act, this Prison Rape Elimination Act. And first year they passed it, which it holds any suspicion of anything that would be considered prison rape or sexual assault amongst inmates, guard on inmate, inmate on inmate, anything. It's an extreme high investigation reporting standard. It took the state of Montana multiple years. I don't even know if they passed their audit. When I was working there, I don't think they hadn't passed their audit.
From a George Bush era.
So the private prison had to pass it first year, and they're audited every single year by the state of Montana that they're held to standard. But the state of Montana still had not passed their audit, to the point that the private prison had to come in and teach the state. So,
jeez.
And I could go on a number of different reporting standards where it's much higher in a private prison. So when you have a much more extreme and narrow definition of assault, contraband, etc., you're going to have way higher rates. Just like if your felony is at $300,
yeah, you're
going to have way more felonies than if your felony is at $1,200.
Right.
Even though the crime is actually the same or higher. So when I hear all these things about the private prisons being so horrible, I don't discount that there's truth to that, but you're not comparing apples to apples.
Because so if I follow this correct, what is contraband in a state prison may not be considered and reported as contraband as per that report
it'll probably be considered it, but they don't enforce it.
Gotcha.
But at the private prison, during the audit, this stuff comes out, and if you're not every little single thing investigated, reported, everything, you can lose your contract. So the state or the government runs is just a much less high standard.
Biden will probably wish he hadn't signed that when he ends up in a federal prison instead of a private prison.
It would be the most unbelievable thing if him and Trump were convicted and we're cellmates
together. Dude, I would be down for that.
But so I had a kind of a funny story about that that Prison Rape Elimination Act. So within the prison, it's referred to as PREA. So sometimes if an inmates are frisked everywhere they go, checking for contraband.
They're
weapons.
Frisked, and apparently they get frisky because they had to pass this act.
If there is an inmate who has an issue with the guard, they will almost always file a PREA against the guard because he's like, oh, when he was frisking me, he was going up too high on.
And that's like their way to.
It's their way to get back at the guard, but everything has to be investigated, and so it's very common for officers, prison guards to have had PREA complaints against them. It's kind of just
it's like you have one. Did you get any as a dentist?
I didn't.
That's good.
But when I went through that the beginning academy, when you first start working there was a new officer coming in. He was from Florida. And right away, he told us that he'd been homeschooled. He's one of like 15 kids out in the Everglades, somewhere deep in the woods. They've been homeschooled and home churched. And I said, I've heard of homeschooling. I've never heard home church.
Home church.
I think that you can use your imagination to form the rest of the picture of this kid,
especially in the Everglades.
This kid was like, a little bit backwards, but anyway, we got he went off and did his officer thing, and I'd been doing dental, and I hadn't seen him for a number of weeks after academy, and he happened to be assigned to someone in medical and was walking through, and he popped in to say hi. I asked him what was going on, and he said, oh, I got my first PREA. And so I kind of laughed and said, man, they told us in class that you're not supposed to be, you're not supposed to be dropping the soap and watching these guys pick it up, kind of teasing them a little bit. Said, I know that you guys work long hours and it gets a little lonely, but you gotta
stay strong.
I was kind of razzing him a little bit about it. And he was laughing, I was laughing, and on he goes. And when he left, I just kind of chuckled, said, man, I can't believe it. That's pretty funny. And my dental assistant was sitting at her desk and she's real quiet. I go, man, can you believe of all the people happened to, of course you would have. She goes, I don't think it's funny. She goes, in fact, I think it's really sad. And I was like, oh, okay. So I went back and started doing my notes and was thinking about it. And I finally turned and I said, hey, yeah, I can understand that might not be funny. I go, but I cannot get my head around why it's sad like that. Like I'm not getting my head around it. And I'm going through every scenario of why it's sad. I've got the not funny part. That's not funny for everyone. And she goes, you think it's funny that he got raped?
No. No way.
I go, what? She goes, it is just not funny. It's really sad that he got raped by an inmate.
It is not a joke.
And I go, wait, you're not getting it. Nothing happened to him. An inmate didn't like the way he was frisked, and so he filed this PREA complaint. And she sat there for a while, and then she kind of started giggling and said, okay, I guess I can see that's funny now.
Can you imagine from her point of view as you two are laughing, he's got his head in there and you guys are joking, and she's over there going, how can this guy be laughing? He just got raped by an inmate. And he's in here teasing with the dentist about it. Oh, man.
Yep.
Oh, that's good.
Yep. That was a pretty fun one. About the time that was happening, I don't know. I was having an allergic response to something. And I was getting like hives on the bottom of my feet that were real itchy. It was so uncomfortable. Sometimes I get them up my side a little bit. And it was going on for about a month and a half, and I couldn't figure out what I was having a reaction to. And one day I woke up and it was particularly bad right in the middle of my lower back. I had some really big hives, a little bit swollen, real itchy, and went to work, and it progressed about half the day, real uncomfortable. And then it just all went away. But as I don't know if I should even tell, this is kind of funny, but I was sitting kind of on my dental stool, and I was getting real uncomfortable. It felt like I didn't have room in my pants.
Just a little tight.
It felt like my testicles are swelling.
Oh, like and you'd had all this, so you're a little worried.
And I thought, and so I was like, is this allergic response getting to this point?
Like it's progressing.
And it continued as the day went on. It got worse and worse to the point where I wasn't in my head. It like visually
was this before the urine injection?
Years later.
This was after. So this could be
this just happened a couple years ago.
Okay.
But I thought I was having an allergic response, but it got like visually like twice swollen up normal. My testicles.
It was happening.
For sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Didn't just feel like it.
And I mean, yeah, you're worried physically, like, but psychologically for a guy that this is concerning. So it got to the point I finally went into the nurse practitioner and
at the prison.
And I told him, like, hey, I'm going to need your help with something here. And I told him what's going on. And I said, I think, could this be an allergic response? This is what I've been having. And he just started laughing. He goes, you had a big histamine response on your lower back, a ton of fluid to that area. And when it goes away, that fluid drains to the lowest point. Just drained to the lowest point between my legs and swelled up. Oh,
watertight,
man. It was a couple prison things came to mind this last week.
So did you go upside down on the wall or something to let it reverse flow?
Right back out my mouth.
Oh goodness.
We've been posting these episodes to the new we started this Steady at the Wheel podcast channel. So anyone who was watching this on YouTube and wondered why it's not on Wild Wild West anymore, we started a dedicated Steady at the Wheel channel. So you can go on there and get subscribed to it. But I've been posting some of the older videos that were on your channel to it, and the one where the dental hygienist with me in the prison went through that attack. I was getting that posted, and I was writing. I was looking at other videos about dentistry in prison, and I came across one of a woman who'd been in prison, was telling a bad experience with the dentist in prison, and she said something that is one of my biggest pet peeves with dentistry.
Oh.
And it's also going to point out immediately a liar.
Okay.
So she starts saying she needed a tooth out, and I was just kind of scanning through it, and she was like, next thing I knew, he literally, everyone says this, literally had his knee on my chest, pulling his tooth out. I can't tell you how many times I've had people tell me, oh, I had this one dentist, he literally had his knee on my chest.
Literally.
It's not true. Like, for one thing, I don't know how a knee on a chest is going to give you more leverage. Anything? The only way
you need maybe a knee on the forehead to hold their head down?
No, the only way I could possibly see where putting any other part of your body on their body to get leverage was if somehow you were able to get a vice grip type situation on a tooth, and you're able to put literally your foot on their face.
Literally.
And push with your foot while you're pulling the opposite direction. You've probably as a kid at some point been trying to pull something, you can get a foot on it.
Yeah, put it really.
Yeah, of course you're not going to have a dentist put his foot in your face. So if anyone out there is saying, yeah, dentist literally put his knee on my chest to pull his tooth out, no, he didn't. And second, if anyone ever tells you, you can say, no, he didn't.
No, he didn't. You now have the authority. I just picture this, knee on the chest, vice grips in the mouth, and just pulling in the patient's head, just going, dum, 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 dum. What's it going to do?
Yeah. So if anyone, so don't ever say that, please.
Rooster even has all this experience in detusking the boars. And in all my years holding the rope, I don't think I ever saw to see Rooster use any kind of foot, knee leverage to get a tusk out of a boar even.
The thing, I mean, if you're putting that kind of, first, I don't know how you're getting leverage to get a tooth out with a knee on the chest. It doesn't make sense to me where the physics are giving you more leverage. The second, if you were able to gain a bunch more leverage by doing that, you're going to break a jaw or you're going to snap a tooth. So which you don't want to do either one of those. So over leveraging a tooth is not good because you're going to break it anyway. It's just such a, oh man, that gets under my skin when people say that.
I'll tell you, me and Jax had a little experience yesterday where we were removing something.
Oh, we did actually.
And that we needed all the leverage.
It was a first. It was a first for both of us. And a first for Rooster. He's been around doing this for a long time.
50-pound feed bag out of the back of the truck. You guys didn't have the skid steer to load it into?
Not.
We had a neighbor that's having little difficulties, and she wanted to know if we could take her milk cow for a while. And of course, we said, yeah. And she said, what do I said, nothing. One cow's not going to make any difference. But when I went to pick the cow, she's got nice, sharp horns. And I could tell by the way she really knew what to do with them. So I put her in with Jackson's kids' little calves for a day or two to get her acclimated. And she's really bossing those calves around with those horns. So,
like to where they won't, and what they'll do, like they won't even let them eat. Like the calves will come in and try to eat some hay, and she just does this big old swath, the kind of thing with her head, and all the calves just scatter. And so it can be problematic, right? Because
and we've got
good at sharing.
Our cows are either muley, which means they don't have horns, or we dehorn them. So I said, I'm going to have to dehorn this cow. She'll have a 10-foot swath of hay where nothing can get close to it. Let's put her in the chute, and we've got good dehorners. I didn't have enough strength to squeeze the handles, which were 3 feet long at least.
They're big long handles, and a dehorner is basically like a guillotine style deal where you open the handles up wide and the jaws open up, and then as you close the handles, these two sharp jaws close across each other, and very quick, nice and easy, clean.
Usually takes about a half second.
Yeah, just we put it on, and I mean, Rooster's like. And Rooster still is like the strongest thing out there. And for him to ask my help probably only increases the force by about 5 to 8% is all. Even with me and Rooster both on, couldn't get him.
So she still got her horns?
No, I moved an inch or so away from the skull and tried it again. I usually like to do it nice and clean right next to the skull. So I moved out about an inch and we got him, but it was every bit of power we could put on him.
So was the owner of this cow going to have a surprise when she gets home, or did you guys go ahead and get the informed consent before?
When I picked it up, I said, do you care if I dehorn this cow? And she said, do whatever you want. She's in your herd.
I think she probably just didn't get dehorned because, neighbor didn't have the way to, you kind of have to have the chute and all that.
Only had one cow.
Probably just didn't have the means or the need. But we got her. So and even then we did not put a knee anywhere on the cow. No knees.
Well, maybe that was the problem.
Could be.
Well, those horns are hard. Whew.
How are we doing on our time?
We got a little bit more.
So while we're on you mind if I share?
You do?
So we're on this, now we're kind of morphed into this pet little thing. I saw another video. By the way, I'm kind of, Instagram is really starting to annoy me. It's starting to feel like a TikTok thing where it's just like there's not much. I'm not going to say there's but there's not much good content on Instagram anymore. Like when I first joined Instagram in 2014, it was a lot of it was like people sharing their craft, which I liked. For me, that was my thing. Like I could follow a couple different mechanics and they would kind of daily or weekly show some videos like, hey, you ever run into this? This is how you fix it, Really liked that. Or, a couple different truck drivers that were into restoring these old cab overs and whatnot. Really cool stuff. But as the years have gone by, like 90% of what is on Instagram anymore is like mindless junk. I'm like, where's all the good stuff go? I recently found an account, and I should have looked it up to plug it, but it's a mechanic again who's showing tips and tricks for trucks. I'm like, oh, hey, that is what Instagram should be about. Instead of just people like mouthing other people's funny lines, like moving. Anyway, so this video that has brought me to this subject came up on Instagram, and it was a school bus going around a community making pickups. Now, typically a school bus picks up children and takes them to school, but this particular bus was traveling around picking up people's personal pets and giving them a seat on the bus. And they didn't go any further in the video. I don't know where I assume they were taking them to some kind of a pet school, like play place. And like they're there, they got like little backpacks on them and stuff. It was really weird.
Let me guess, this was in California.
You remember what you said last week? I don't know where it was, but it's led me to this question for you, because I would say of all of our 6 kids in the family, that you're probably the most pet. What's the word? I don't know. You've had the most pets of all of us over the years, and
the most soft, compassionate.
Yeah, most
thoughts of pets.
Yeah, thoughtful and compassionate of all the 6 of us. So you've had a lot of dogs over the years, even a few cats. Luke is kind of a cat person a little bit.
Yeah.
But yet, in a world that we live in now, where my beef with this is everyone's gotten so weird. I'm just going to say it, because it's true and nobody wants to admit it. People have gotten so weird about their pets. Like it used to just be like a sweet little old lady that was real lonely would have her little poodle with her everywhere. Now it's like people everywhere, like they can't get along without their little dog or their fur kids and stuff. And like they've like moved their pets into the replacement of humans. Like they're like, well, we don't need to have kids anymore because we have fur babies. And I'm like, that is a little different. It's a little different. So how have you gone all this time having these pets and but not falling into this weird culture, this strange phenomena in society where people are like childrenifying their pets?
I think it simply comes to that I respect my pets, or I respect my animals.
Okay.
I can't think of anything anything more disrespectful to a dog than to try and equate it to a human.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the ability of a dog in so many aspects is so beyond what we're capable of. And to try and drag them down to our level, I mean, it's extremely disrespectful.
Huh.
I think that's why I have never done that or allowed it to happen.
Uh-huh.
Like even putting a handkerchief around a dog's neck just makes my blood boil, because to me it's extremely disrespectful to the nobility of the dog.
Uh-huh. That's an interesting way to look at it.
You know, they are an extremely capable and amazing animal.
They really are. Like in the case of like here, like a good cow dog on the ranch, they're like amazing.
And to disrespect him, to me, it's just extreme disrespect.
Uh-huh.
Embarrassingly so.
It's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable to me because you're just extremely disrespecting that nobility and the capability of what that animal is by putting your energies into trying to make it be your kid or your baby.
Yeah.
Versus putting your energies into helping maximize the working relationship between you and the dog. You're diminishing that dog. No matter what you think, you're absolutely diminishing it.
Yeah.
That dog doesn't want to be a person or a kid. It wants to be a dog. And when you're able to tap into what that dog wants to be, I mean, there's a lot of power in that between a dog owner or, you know.
Because I'm really glad you put it that way. That's actually pretty profound, I think. It's not like an anti-dog thing. Like I'm not anti-pets. So I love dogs. Cats keep so many mice away from our house. Like I park the cab overs at our house in the winter because I don't want to get mice in them. You know, out on the ranch, there's so much ground to cover. Even a cat can do amazing things if you let them do what they want, which is they are like a little predator, right?
Do what they're capable of.
Yeah.
Maybe not do what they want. Well, a cat, good luck controlling.
Right. They just, right. But I mean, they need to have some obedience like a dog, but like that's so right. And I've never heard that before as a reasoning why not to dive into this weirdness that it doesn't seem to matter. It doesn't matter how old you are anymore. It's like young couples get into this old. I mean, I understand it with kind of lonely older folks needing that companionship and having that kind of weird dynamic, but it's everywhere now.
Yeah, it is a little bit goofy. But yeah, so I don't, that school bus thing, do you think it's legit or do you think it's just done up for a video to make people think something's really cute?
I actually saw the same video was on the news.
What is it? So it's probably
then it's got to be true then.
It's got to be true.
For sure.
It was on CNN. It had to be.
Was it CNN or Fox?
They thought it was so cute that these dogs knew where their seat was. They'd pull up and open the door and the dog would jump in and go down the aisle and jump up in his seat.
It's just it's gross to me. I'm like, this is gross. This is not. And it's funny because a lot of the same people will think like, it is so wrong to have cows out there in the pasture. Like, how can you have domestic cows? And you're like, you got a dog dressed up in a coat, sleeping on your bed, like under your covers, man. Like, what are you talking about?
Oh, man. Well, we're getting closer on here. I think we should end with coming back, circling around while Roost is here to that Billy Jack episode. Did you go back and watch it or listen to it?
I did.
What'd you think?
Yeah, I'm a little self-conscious, but I thought it brought back good memories.
After recording that, I was a little bit discombobulated for a couple of days, I'm going to admit. And I don't know why. It made me like extremely nostalgic.
Yeah.
But like sad nostalgic. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to explain.
It's a weird emotion.
I think it was the you know what I think it was is I have always been a little bit envious of particularly soldiers who develop some really intense relationships, lifelong close relationships with guys who they've been through some pretty rough things with. And I think that's exactly what you and Billy Jack talking about. You guys went through like those stories are real funny and crazy, but when you're in the middle of them, you didn't think they were funny. I get miserable. Like,
oh yeah, you're like,
this is end of the world type.
Like, how are we going to get out of here? Like, yeah, we talk about that Browning thing, getting stuck on the hill in Browning. But if you think about the reality of that situation, It's like we might freeze up. There's no phones. There's nothing. We're stuck out here. And sure, it's funny now, but I don't think there's many laughs going on.
But when you go through that with people, you develop a much different relationship. And I think part of that, that after that episode, which kind of discombobulated me, was just realizing how difficult it is to, maybe not even possible in the society, the way we live now, to have experiences like that.
Yeah.
But it's those experiences that develop such deeper relationships, meaningful. Mm-hmm. Steve Ranella, some of you listeners might know him. He has that Meat Eater show on Netflix, where he goes and documents hunting. I was listening to his podcast, and he was talking about easy fun and hard fun. And he goes, you don't remember easy fun. And hard fun isn't fun when you're doing it.
It's years later.
But he was giving the example of, he was talking about some hunts that he's gone on that went a little bit south, weather rough. It didn't go good. And he goes, those are the things that he looks back on. Was like, that was the funnest hunt I ever been on. Yet when he was in it, it was miserable. Whereas, you go to, you go to an amusement park and go on some rides. That's easy fun. You don't remember that.
Right.
A month later, you don't really remember it.
No.
And I think that that episode, all those stories, was a lot of laughing and how fun,
Yeah.
It was really hard fun, a lot of those stories.
Well, it was like they would talk about, what popped into my head again, this last trip that I was on, was that just as simple as this, they drove 55 miles an hour everywhere. I mean, go try to drive 55 miles an hour for the next hour anywhere. Next road trip you go on, go try that.
Okay.
And
then when you're like, that wasn't so bad. Now put only an AM radio on, no phone, no satellite radio, no podcast, no anything.
Yeah.
Other than
nothing.
an AM radio, which might work sometimes.
Yeah. In between, you got some gray zones.
You have to change stations all the time.
You have to know all the different stations.
One will work for 50
to
miles.
basically get the same programming over and over and over. Same song, same,
I remember trucking with you, and it seemed like you knew almost to the mile marker and time of day where you could pick up stations. There's some that you could pick up from a long ways away, only at this time of night on this stretch. And then it's gone,
When I remember, and I don't even know this player, some of you older baseball fans remember, I remember loading pigs in Billings, crawling into the back of the bunk in the cab over and laying back there and hearing Colorado's Rockies games and the name Andres Galarraga. He was some big star for the Rockies back then, back in the late 90s or whatever. And that's all I remember was Andres Galarraga. And Dad's just like, KOA out of Denver.
Great coverage.
Just over and over. But when we'd leave on Tuesdays, you'd get Dr. Laura Schlesinger, the marriage and counseling gal, from like Great Falls to Eddie's Corner, and then it would fuzz out, and then nothing until Billings, and then Billings it was KOA at night. The AM. But you remember that Rush Limbaugh sometimes was mixed in there from the old days.
Yeah. So remember hard fun. Seek it out.
That reminds me of a few hunting trips that were hard fun. I'll bring up sometime. But
yeah,
the most horrible experiences of my life, and now they're fun. And to look back on them, I think, wow, that was pretty cool.
My kid told me the other day. He goes, Dad, now bad things don't really happen anymore because now you can just talk about it on the podcasts.
That was his take. And how old's Ozzy?
6. So I think he's realized he's been in some situations where I might have been a little bit intense, and then he's heard me laughing about it on the podcast. So I was like, yeah.
I love that.
Kind of hard versus easy fun.
It's all good content.
All right. I know you got to get on the road. You guys got a show?
Yeah. We're playing a little music here later on. And Brewster, remember those hunting stories? Write them down. Start writing this stuff down. I'd be curious.
All right, guys. So we appreciate the support. We have started Steady at the Wheel channel on YouTube.
And it's difficult, you guys. It's hard to start a channel. So we've talked about this a little bit. I'm going to start getting more serious about it on my YouTube channel to try to get this going. But it's a lot of work to start from scratch, essentially, which is what we've done with this podcast. And then, we put a few of those videos on Wild Wild West just to get some feelers out and see how things were looking and garner a little interest. Now we've moved that to its own so that it can, really get the attention it needs over time, and direct focus. And so we need you, I hate calling in asks and favors, but really, if you could get over there, set up a YouTube account. If for no other reason, some of these podcasts that you listen to, you're going to want to go back, even if it's just a certain part of an episode, you're going to want to go back and see what our faces were doing. Or because like with Billy, Jack, and Rooster, so half of the storytelling was in
just their faces.
Yeah, you have to see some of that. So keep that in mind.
It's a huge help to get a channel up off the ground if you just go subscribe to it.
Right.
Just go, even if you never go watch a video, if you go and hit the subscribe button, that's a huge help to getting this off the ground.
Yeah.
We have talked a lot about, and this is something as we try and free up time, we want to bring to that podcast channel more than just posting a visual version of the podcast. We would like to start doing, I think not calling it Stay at the Wheel University, but
like some education,
stuff. We'd like to video different road conditions, get out and look at the roads, driving in them from the vehicle and talk about ways to handle them. Even things, Jaxon, when he's fueling up, the things he's checking on his truck and why he's checking them, little easy, more common problems you might run into on the road mechanically and what he does to fix those, we'd just like to have some more educational type stuff on there. Again, from the beginning, we had talked about how we've kind of lamented the loss of mentorship in trucking. Part of that is old guys telling younger guys stories, and we're hoping to try and bring that a little bit. But another thing is just some of the practical wisdom that you get. And we would like to create some video content around that. So please do go subscribe on there. That does help us in progressing that and getting to that point.
Hey, here's one other cool thing and this is kind of maybe a little bit of a far out idea right now, and I'm not sure how to do it properly, but had a few messages about this after the ground blizzard episode about, where I had my friend let me park in his shop that night. And then I talked about the importance of taking time to make relationships and have connections. I had 2 or 3 people send messages through Instagram that mentioned it'd be kind of cool to have some sort of almost like a directory or a network where someone's like, hey, I'm so-and-so, kind of part of the family. I'm a wheeler from Northern Colorado, and it's as simple as if you get in trouble there, you could, call me as a resource. I know some of the mechanics around. I know who might come out and help you and who's a waste of your time. Just to kind of make this cool, like this network of family, so to speak, down the road, I think would be pretty dang cool.
You know what as I'm getting older and I realize especially going to that funeral this morning with my contemporaries, this fellow that passed along as a contemporary, but there's so much stuff I haven't passed on to you guys. It's starting to drive me nuts. Just like my whole highlight of my life growing up was fishing and hunting trips back in the mountains with horses. And I haven't taught any of you guys how to pack.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many tricks and knots, and I just need to get some of this information inculcated in you guys before I take the final ride.
Yeah. Yep. It's all in that vein for sure.
Yeah. So, again, Steady at the Wheel on YouTube is the podcast. Please go there and subscribe. Jaxon's Wild Wild West channel. Oh, his ranching. Ooh.
But you're good with Taylor. Taylor likes the farm name.
His ranching and trekking adventures. Steady at the Wheel podcast on Instagram and Steady at the Wheel podcast at Gmail. So we're trying to progress this.
Yeah.
I think the next episodes you're gonna like. It's our little brother Weston's in town from Texas.
Right. Weston's coming in.
So there should be some more good stories there. So until then, everybody.